phase of great people who were here in Puerto Rico in 1939, I've chosen William Daniel Leahy. Admiral Leahy was Chief of Naval Operations from 1937 to 1939. During this time, in spite of being hard times for military budgets, he managed to expand the Navy by building the aircraft carriers Hornet, Wasp, Yorktown, and Enterprise. And anyone familiar with World War II will recognize these names. Of course, Franklin Roosevelt, who was his old friend, was also his boss and also pro-Navy. By the way, Franklin Roosevelt also visited Puerto Rico at that time. In 1939, Roosevelt appointed his friend, Admiral Leahy, to be governor of Puerto Rico. So when his base was founded, Leahy was governor of Puerto Rico. At the time of the appointment, he said to Leahy, he said, "Bill, if we have a war, I'm going to bring you back to Washington to run it." As governor of Puerto Rico, Leahy was a genius at getting funds for Puerto Rico, and he knew all of the strings to pull in Washington. He got most of the federal agencies, like the WPA, to include Puerto Rico in their projects. Even in the Great Depression, things got better in Puerto Rico than ever before. I talked to my wife about her memories of the Great Depression, and her memories of the difficulties in Puerto Rico are far different than my memories of the difficulties in the States. As governor of Puerto Rico, Leahy had some trouble getting his appointments approved by the Puerto Rico Senate. So he became friends with Luis Muñoz Marin, who helped him get his appointments confirmed. For almost a complete time that Leahy was governor of Puerto Rico, he lived in a pavilion on the mansion grounds as he was renovating La Fortaleza. Puerto Rico could not have had a better governor at that time, as Leahy fully understood the role that Puerto Rico would have to play in supporting the United States military. But when France failed to Hitler's onslaught, Roosevelt cut Leahy's term as governor of Puerto Rico short, and he appointed him as ambassador to Vichy, France, where he attempted to save the French fleet. Also, at this time, they thought that England might fall, so they had a plan to save the English fleet. And the plan to save the English fleet was to move it to Roosevelt Roads. After Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt kept his promise to Leahy and returned him to active duty as Chief of Staff to the Commander-in-Chief. In that capacity, he ran World War II as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Chairman of the Combined Chiefs of Staff. All of the important decisions of World War II carry the imprint of his former governor of Puerto Rico, including the appointments of the generals and the admirals who ran the war. As Chief of Staff of the Combined Chiefs of Staff, Roosevelt was concerned that the foreign rank of Field Marshal was higher than Leahy's rank. So Roosevelt offered to promote Leahy to an equivalent rank. Leahy insisted that if he was promoted, then the United States Chiefs of Staff should also be promoted. That meant that General Marshall would become Field Marshal Marshall. This they thought was awkward. So they finally decided to call the new ranks General of the Army and Admiral of the Fleet. So, in 1944, on successive days, they promoted all 7 in the following order. Admiral Leahy was first. The following day, they promoted General Marshall. Then, on successive days, they promoted Admiral King, then General MacArthur, then Admiral Nimitz, then General Eisenhower, then the Air Force General, General Arnold. But later on, they promoted 2 more to 5-star rank. They promoted Admiral Halsey and General Omar Bradley. That made the former governor of Puerto Rico, because of his date of rank, the highest ranking military officer in the United States history. When Roosevelt died, Leahy had the responsibility of bringing Truman up to date on everything. But Truman kept Leahy on as his Chief of Staff until 1949, and together They visited Puerto Rico in 1948, where they met with Leahy's old friend, Luis Munoz Marin. I'm now going to backtrack again a little to 1939, when Leahy was governor of Puerto Rico. In addition to building a new Air Force base at Punta Breca, they also wanted to create a new naval presence in Puerto Rico. They established a new command called the 10th Naval District and the Caribbean Sea Frontier. For this new position, they wanted the best possible commander. Fortunately, Governor Leahy had been Chief of Naval Operations and he knew the best. So, in 1940, they promoted Rear Admiral Raymond Spruance to be the first commander of the 10th Naval District in San Juan. He stayed in his position until World War II broke out, when he was then transferred to the Pacific to be on Admiral Halsey's staff as commander of the screen. Admiral Halsey at this time was leading a task force centered around the aircraft carrier Enterprise, and he had already fought in all the battles up to the Battle of Midway. Just prior to the Battle of Midway, Admiral Halsey came down with such a severe skin disease that his doctors grounded him and put him in the hospital. As a result, he recommended that Admiral Spruance take his place. All of a sudden, his rear admiral, who shortly before had been walking to work at Puerto de Tierra in San Juan, was thrust into a position of leadership that would determine the future of the world. And thank God his former boss Leahy had managed to build the aircraft carriers Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown. Admiral Spruance's performance at Midway is often compared to Admiral Nelson's victory at Trafalgar. They sank 4 of Japan's largest aircraft carriers, primarily because of Admiral Spruance's decision to launch his attack at maximum range, where he risked losing all of his aircraft. It was a turning point of World War II. It was a turning point of World War II just months after leaving San Juan. Admiral Spruance had changed the balance of power in World War II. When I first read Herman Wouk's War and Remembrance in the early 1980s, I wrote a letter to the San Juan Star asking if there was anyone out there who had served with Admiral Spruance when he was in San Juan. I got 2 responses. Captain Culpepper, who said that he served with him in San Juan, and Lieutenant Commander Purcell, who said that he had served with them both in San Juan and again later on in the Pacific. Ironically, Carl Vinson, who now has a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier named after him, blocked Admiral Spruance's promotion to 5-star rank. Before I finish, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on my tour at Ramey.